Hi everybody, I'm going to try to go over a little bit about follow-up stories today in this lecture so that you can be ready for your next story, which is due next Thursday. There is also an assignment included in this lecture, so you'll need to stick with things right to the end so that you can get that assignment. Now, a follow-up story is exactly what it says it is. It is a story that follows up on some other story, a story that was earlier in the year, in the day, in the week, in the month, and so on. Probably the best example I can give you of a follow-up story is, let's say we have a court trial going on, and we're staffing it each day of the 2 weeks that the trial is going on. And so every day the reporter goes to that court trial and reports what happened that day, and then comes back and writes the story and fills in the blanks so that anybody who is just picking the newspaper up or just turning the TV on for the very first time still knows what we're talking about. Okay, so a follow-up story is a story that stays alive more than one day, more than one news cycle. And in doing so, it creates the need to follow up on it from time to time to make sure that people are still aware of things. Follow-up stories usually happen when we have something that breaks a new breaking news story about something that happened in January, for example. It often happens in a case like a court case where every day there is something different going on. And it also is the kind of story that we can follow up on forever. I mean, Katrina is coming up on its 10th anniversary this year. You can bet that there are going to be a lot of people in the news business who are going to do a bunch of stories because it's the 10th anniversary, and that's one of those milestone anniversaries. But every year for the past 9 years, we've had stories around August the 29th, just simply because people remember that bad storm and remember how it affected them. So a follow-up story is the kind of story that has a couple of things going for it. Number one, it has to have that context or nut graph in there. And usually that context or nut graph can often be part of the first couple of paragraphs because you want to remind the audience of where you've been with this. If you will look in your packet right now on page 2-29, and you will read through the original story at the top of the page. You will see that it's a story about some campers who went out to DeSoto National Forest and found a body. Okay? As you can imagine, when regular people find a body somewhere in the middle of the woods, it can be kind of disconcerting. And what happens is that they're not the only ones that are kind of disconcerted. It can happen that law enforcement might be a little confused and so on. So that's what this original story tells you, is that it took a good while to get to the point, but what eventually happened was that sheriff's deputies reported out to the site of the body, and they determined that it was a man, aged 20 to 30, 150 to 170 pounds, no ID on him, appeared to have been shot at pretty close range in the head. No gun, no weapon lying around. So they've sort of ruled out foul play. I mean, they've sort of ruled out suicide, but they have not ruled out foul play at this particular point. So what happens is that you write the breaking news story on the day that the original story happens. Okay? Now, a couple of days later, or one day later, as it says in the next paragraph, we've sent the body to the coroner. The coroner has done the preliminary report, and we have discovered that this was a case where this body was shot by somebody else. Okay? So Whereas our lead on our original story might be a body was found in DeSoto National Forest Monday. The unidentified body is that of a man aged 20 to 30, about approximately 160 pounds. Forest County Sheriff's Department is in charge of the investigation, excuse me, and continues to investigate the situation. Okay, that's pretty much all we know that first day. We could go into some background on how two campers were looking for firewood and found the body at what appears to be an abandoned campsite. Okay, so one day later, we don't want to start with Bill and Jennifer Dixon were out in DeSoto National Forest on Monday, and they found a body, and Forest County Sheriff's deputies responded, and they brought the body back, and it's a man, and he's 20 to 30, and he's 160 pounds. Okay, we don't want to put that in the lead. What we want to say in the lead is a body found, an autopsy done on a body found in DeSoto National Forest Monday shows that the man was indeed shot by someone else. Then we go into what the coroner's report says a bit, and then we add our nut graph that says campers found the body of an unidentified man in DeSoto National Forest. Monday, the body was found at an abandoned campsite. There was no identification on the body. The victim is believed to be a man aged 20 to 30 of approximately 160 pounds. Okay, so then we write the rest of the story. What did the rest of the coroner's report say? What else have we discovered in investigating this crime, and so on and so forth. Okay, so nothing happens for the rest of the week. That's Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday of that week. But the next Monday, the sheriff's office gets a word. They put out a bunch of information about this body that has been found in this forest down here, and they get a hit. And it's from Boston, Massachusetts, where a stockbroker who left town 3 weeks ago has not gotten back in touch with his family, and so his family's getting a little worried about him. He happens to be 20 to 30. He happens to be around the 160-pound level, and so we're investigating whether or not the body found in DeSoto National Forest is indeed this person. So at this point, we need to lead with something to the effect of Forest County Sheriff's officials are working with law enforcement in Boston, Massachusetts, to see if a body found in DeSoto National Forest last week is that of a missing person reported in Boston, period. Then you go through the process of talking about who's missing and why he's missing and how long he's been missing, and then we get back to that connecting paragraph, back to that nut graph that says the body was found by campers looking for firewood on Monday, March the 23rd. The body had no identification on it. A coroner's report showed that the man had been shot at close range. Okay? All right, so you're recapping, for those who are playing catch-up, everything that's going on up to that point. 2 days after your report about the missing person connection, boom, Bruce Lazenby, who is the missing person, returns home and everything's fine. So we may lead the story with something to the effect of area law enforcement is back at square one in trying to determine who trying to determine the identity of a body found in DeSoto National Forest on March the 23rd, period. And then we go back into we backtrack. Forest County deputies had been working with Boston, Massachusetts officials to locate a stockbroker who had gone missing, and his family was worried about him. However, Bruce Lazenby arrived home in Boston and deleted the need for that missing person report. Okay, then you go back into how the body was found, that sort of thing. Okay, so a month later, we're no closer to finding out who this body belongs to, and so we follow up again and say, We may have to bring in the FBI because we just don't have any place to go with this particular investigation at this point. And then a year later, the same thing. There's been no movement whatsoever on this. So, and the lead investigator is thinking about moving, or is going to move to the Gulfport Police Department. And so this is going to become a cold case, is what it looks like. The point I'm trying to make with this is that each time you follow up on this story, you still have to go back to that original story so that you can tell people in your report, here's what's happened to date. That's why following up a trial is such a good example, because each day you're going to say, John Doe is on trial for murder of Mary Smith. The murder happened in this particular date and time. Smith's body was found dumped in the river, that kind of thing, okay? So that's what a follow-up story is. So as you begin to look for follow-up stories, you are looking for things that have happened that you can follow up on. Okay, here are some examples. Say Congress does something. A follow-up story might be, how is this going to affect Main Street, or in our case, Hardy Street? Let's talk to people here about what they think the action of Congress might be for us here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, or for college students, or for young adults, whatever the case may be. Okay, so that's a reaction or a real people piece is often a really good follow-up story. Some of you did those for your news features, and they were fine as news features. They're also fine for this particular assignment. You have a lot of philanthropies going on this time of year. Maybe your follow-up is the final total that so-and-so sorority or fraternity is going to give to so-and-so philanthropy. And you can follow up on all of the things that sorority or fraternity has done for that particular philanthropy during the prior year, during the prior 10 years, whatever the case may be. Now, we don't want to write a history piece, okay? So you don't want to go too far back. And your original reporting is going to be from people now. Okay, so you're going to want to talk to people who have been part of that philanthropy, who donated to it, who ran it, who've been involved with promoting it all year, that sort of thing. Okay, some other things that you might want to follow up on. Maybe there's a news piece that happened a while back, and you think that it needs to be revived because it's still important. Maybe there's a program going on campus that has had time to kind of percolate a little bit, and let's talk about now how it is taking its first steps as a solid program. Any of those kinds of things might help you kind of focus on where you're going to go for this week's story. Now, again, you're not going to write a history piece. You're not going to go back and write about what everybody did for Christmas. What you're going to do is you're going to do original reporting on something that was reported a while back. And that means that what happened a month ago becomes the nut graph. It is not usually the lead. It is not usually the second paragraph unless it has to be there in order for understanding to occur. But what you are looking for is you are looking for a story that you can follow up on. If you will look in your packet on page 2-31, there is some information that you can write a follow-up story with. I'd like to see how you do that. So if you'll write that and bring it to class on Tuesday, we'll talk about it there and correct any errors that we see so that you can easily write that story for Thursday's assignment. Okay? So 2-31 in your packet, write a story, double space and type it so that we can go through it in class on Monday, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay? Thanks a lot.